Hello and welcome to There's No Business Like, a podcast where friends and industry colleagues explore topics and interview leaders in our industry of professional theatrical touring.
Hey, it's Josh. Welcome back to There's No Business Like, and we are here to welcome you to our NCAA bracket episode. I'm here with my friends, Danielle.
Hey, it's Danielle Van Hook from the Alden and McLean, Virginia, and I hope everyone has fun.
Kevin
Maynard coming at you from Tallahassee, and I hope that Danielle does not have fun.
We all know Danielle's going to win.
Katie.
Hi, everyone. Katie Miller with Michigan Maven Creative Associates in Midland, Michigan. And go Michigan basketball teams.
Boo. Next.
And last but least in the sports world, Brian.
Ryan, the bracket man, Zellmer from Bardavon Presents here in Poughkeepsie, New York.
So we've clearly done these brackets to have a little bit of fun. Some of our listeners have joined in with the brackets, and it will be vicious from this point forward, though the intention was fun. Game on.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm taking this thing home.
But we also now get to live our dream as sports podcasters, and I think that's really all why we got into this.
Yeah,
so
as midfielders.
How did everybody actually choose their brackets?
I didn't know that this existed until I was out of college. This was not a part of my college experience at like a triple whatever school. But I was handed a bracket once in a doctor's office, and they were like, ha ha, just a friendly thing with patients, until I realized that I was ridiculously good at just randomly picking things. And then
says a lot of people in sixth place.
Listen, it's the beginning. It's the beginning. So since that time, I have found myself within a family who really likes sports and also competition. And they like to do a lot of research and make very, very specific picks. And I like to stomp on their dreams every year through the way I pick. And I've won our family bracket numerous times now that I know that 1, it exists, and 2, it's stupid. But 3, here's how I chose my bracket. 1, is it a place I've been to? I'll probably pick it. 2, do I like the bird? I'll probably pick it. If it's a bird versus a dog, probably going to pick the dog. Is it a place where I know somebody who's lived? I often pick the Michigan teams, even before I knew Katie. And why do I pick Duke every time? Big D, like me.
I loosely follow college basketball, like very, very loosely. So I chose it a little bit based on that. And then when I couldn't make a decision, I just used my Dice Shaker app to decide which one was going to happen. And I was doing really well until that Clemson game.
As everyone else.
Well, I don't know anything about basketball either, especially college basketball. And so I just went with, if I knew one of the teams and I didn't know the other, like if I've heard of it before, I went with them. I did like that it showed the ranking of the team. So if it was a drastic difference, I went usually with the one that was the higher ranking one, meaning the lower number. I do know that much. And, but if it was close, if it was like a really close rank between the two, I went with the underdog every time.
When I do brackets, I typically do look at Michigan and Michigan State or any other Michigan-based teams, right? Make sure they're in the mix. Also, my dad went to Purdue University. My mom went to Missouri, and I went to college in Wisconsin. So typically I advance those teams pretty far because they're always like pretty high up there. But I don't think I ever take any of those teams to the finals. Somewhere back in my memory, when I was younger, Gonzaga had a really good run and they won at some point in time. And so
I never heard of Gonzaga. Where is that?
It's in Washington State.
They have a dog.
They have a dog. Yeah. So for some reason, I have just always like picked Gonzaga to go really far.
And also it sounds like Gorgonzola.
And then in matchups where I don't have any of those people, I always pick the underdog. It always happens. There's always a Cinderella story, right? And if you pick the right one, you could go far.
For me, I go on gut instinct. I mean, it's pure gut decision. I always try and pick a handful of upsets. I got a couple of those right on the first round, which is why I know it's not the leading spot to be winning this in 6th place like you guys, but that's why I'm in 4th place.
It just started. There's more chaos today.
Yeah, when does this go till, by the way?
Like a couple of weeks, Brian. We're in this for a while.
April
Like
7th. April 7th.
Oh, I thought it was like a week long or something.
No.
March is almost done. March Madness.
Most of the
There's only a week
madness
left.
is like a week, but the whole thing takes quite some time.
April 7th is the final.
Wow. I hope I don't get bored before that happens. Anyway.
Well, the good point is you don't actually have to do anything
Yeah, look, Brian.
between now and then.
Now
Like,
it's
all
just
of your
smack
effort is
talk.
done.
Yeah, but based on our group chat, you were bored before the bracket started.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair.
Again, this is a lot of fun, but how can we actually apply this to our field, to the arts?
Wait, Josh, I've been giving this a lot of thought.
Uh-oh.
I think that we need to create a bracket to pit theaters against other theaters so we can choose the best theater.
Broadway World is currently doing a Broadway bracket.
Yes. I have done the Broadway bracket several times.
I don't know if I like this because in this time of division, I think we need to be focusing on coming together, not pitting against
more
one another.
division, Brian. More.
Well, Brian, the problem with that is that you're not focused on winning.
That's right.
Well, I am. We win when we're all in it together.
How does any of this actually apply to the arts? I think one of the things that we should really be paying attention to is how other sectors and how other fields have success and how we can apply that to where we're at now. So what can we look at within the sports world and the success within the sports world and how we can apply that to what we do? And here's the most interesting thing about it to me is live sporting events are entertainment and they are treated like shows. There is somebody who is the stage manager role who is arranging everything that happens at a professional basketball game. At timeouts, there's entertainment. There's games. There's different things that happen. And there is somebody who is in charge of that every time and somebody who's running those logistics and who's calling what's happening at what time. All of this is planned in advance because it is a live event. And so the parallels are tremendous because sports are live entertainment. So how do we then apply that to what we do?
No, Josh, I think it's a good point about how live sports are actually entertainment. You know, the one difference though, and this is when we were, talking about this topic and prepping for it, was I just kept thinking the one advantage that live sports have over the arts is that competitive edge. So the competition piece there's so many similarities, but that's the one thing that live arts doesn't really have that sports does. So if you sort of take that out of the equation, though, there are so many similarities in terms of storytelling, the entertainment aspect, like you were talking about, the community engagement aspect. Like professional athletes are out in their community doing engagement work, doing charity work all the time, right? So there's a lot of different things I think we can pull from the live entertainment sports industry and apply to what we do. But we also have to remember there's the competitive part of it, and the tenor is a little bit different. I think when we talk about arts for all and loosening some of the expected norms in our venues, we're not going to ever be able to erase all of that. But there are some cues we can take from live sports in terms of engaging people during intermission, before and after the show, social media content, things like that.
Yeah, there's also, sports also has like the unknown aspect. More so than theater. Like obviously, like anything can happen at a live show. Like there's always those things, but for the most part, like you sort of go in knowing what that outcome's going to be. But whereas sports, like there's some things that are on the line there. So we should probably figure out ways that we can start betting on theater and live events. How can I get the Hard Rock Bets app to take a bet on Hamilton or the next show that's coming here?
Sports also has an element of danger. People get injured all the time. It's like feeds that primal part of our brain of like, that wants us to go to war and us versus them, and just kind of satisfies us in that way, kind of like the Game of Thrones touched on, that movie series.
I think that some of the things that the arts can take from sports is like it's the marketing and telling the story. I think what's really interesting is sports has continually built this narrative about like why you should put your kids in sports, where it teaches them how to work with a team, it teaches them discipline, it teaches them all these different things, and they're like, that's exactly what theater does. Like it teaches you how to do those things. It also teaches you how to speak in public as well. It also helps you like balance your nerves. There's all sorts of things that are very similar between sports and theater, but we don't really tell that story as well as sports do.
Well, talking about the storytelling aspect of it, sports are also really good at, especially sports journalism is really good at following rivalries and following what's happening that isn't in the game itself and building something up out of it. There's part of it that I think could apply to our world from a marketing standpoint is, and this is something that was brought up in my conversation with Angel Maleka whenever I was on her podcast. Theater and dance is so afraid to show an unfinished product to the public that we don't show enough of the process and the development because we only want them to see that final product.
Yeah.
And that fear around it has to be perfect before anybody can see it is part of why there's not enough engagement building up to to the premiere and what's happening, because that dirty in between is scary. And I say that from a muralist standpoint, where everything that I create is in the public eye from the start to the finish of creating that piece. It isn't there within the performing arts industry. And that development, that dirty development, hey, it's not perfect, it's not what we want it to be, it's not our final product. Whenever we align that to sports, they're covering spring training, they're covering the draft, they're covering the college years. Through college years and through their development, we're seeing these players as they develop into being the professionals. And it's not just, here's the final product.
A lot of Broadway shows have workshops along the way first, and then they'll do out of towners, and then they have 2 weeks of previews. And you can go to a preview on Wednesday and then go to Thursday's show, and it's completely different because they're literally working on it and changing it. And that's an exciting. I've got to go to a couple previews in my life, and they're pretty fun and exciting. Comedy, a lot of stand-up comedians will go and do smaller clubs to work out material. They often will say, okay, this show I'm just working out new material. They'll let the audience know. But I think you're right, though. The big areas that it's not happening is with the music and concert artists, the groups like classical musicians and so forth. Other than jazz or improv based kind of groups, you're not seeing it there. You're right. They're especially classical. They're looking for they're searching for perfection, and that's what they want to put out there. And I think it's an interesting concept of showing the, as you said, dirty, messy parts of working it out could be interesting to some people. But then I also think of audience members like that come to a finished product show and like one little mistake happens and they complain, oh, it wasn't that good. It's like, I think we also need to if we're going to do something like that, we need to kind of retrain our audiences to be open to imperfection as well.
Well, and one of the aspects that Angela Melika brought up whenever we were speaking about this topic was that some of the most popular things on TV are these cooking competition things where you get to watch their process and you get to watch their pieces come together, and they don't look great until they're the final. But people are in love with these things where you get to actually watch these things created.
When Miss Saigon was coming together, they did a whole global audition process, and they had a television series following the auditions all the way up till like Lea Salonga, who was a young girl at the time, got the role, and like the whole development of that was pretty exciting to watch. And also when Beauty and the Beast was being created by Disney, they did a whole thing like you're talking about too, televised it was only on the Disney Channel back then, but I used to watch it, like the making of Beauty and the Beast until it came out. And it did make it more exciting and people wanting to go see it. And like, it was an instant success because everyone was like invested into it already. So I think you're onto something, and I think it's a cool idea. I just, how do we convince artists? I mean, we're all presenters. How do we convince artists to be willing to do this and make themselves vulnerable in that way?
And that's the part of it is you have to be vulnerable to be able to do that. And that's honestly, from a mural standpoint, that's one of the hardest parts, is that your entire process is out for everyone. And how, there's criticism that happens through that process as well. And just having to work past that and work through it, because that's the process for mural work, is that it has to be out in the open.
You guys you all know, but not everybody in our listening side knows that I'm a songwriter, and I have many songs out there that I've been working on. And I'm embarrassed if my family hears me practicing on it because it's just so personal. It's such a private thing when you're in that creation mode. So, I mean, I can empathize with artists not wanting to do that, to be heard, until you have it in a place where okay, I'm ready to share it, where I feel good about sharing it. It is difficult. But I think, again, from the patron side, like, as I would love to watch that process and see how it's happening.
I think that's the trick there is, we're talking about March Madness and we're talking about sports when, really like those big connections, I think make a better connection to like movies, like the things that we want to see happen in live sports to arts. Like we're seeing those things happen with like movie stars and like those sort of things. Cause you can look back and see like they'll start doing bio or like news articles and different things or like pieces on these movie stars. But like how do we take like what sports and maybe movies are doing nationally and on an international level and like bring that into the local level? Because Brian, I think what you're talking about when you say it's sort of embarrassing to hear people to hear you practice, in my mind, I want to hear you practice because I don't know what it's like to write a song. And I don't know what that process feels like or looks like. So how do we create or do something locally where, you can create that sort of safe environment where maybe it's a way for people to give feedback or people to learn, or, it's not a performance. It's not something you're necessarily paying for. But you get to sort of be in the room while it's happening.
Yeah. So like jumping back to the March Madness thing, I think another thing that sports really excels at is the novelty of it. There's so many things in the sports world that you could do a bracket for, right? But like bracket is a universally known thing for March Madness. Like people like myself and Katie who only care about I only care about women's soccer. Like I know about brackets because of this time of the year. And there's so many other different points of the year or different points of seasons that there is a novelty aspect of it that only happens in that one time of year that makes it feel special and make that moment in time have even another like competitive edge over something else that might be happening. And I think sports and sometimes politics does this a little bit too, where it makes it personal, right? Like you were talking about the rivalries, and there was a commercial a couple of years ago that was like football is family, and it was like families gifting each other their team swag, and really making that tie of the team that's yours is so much a part of you and your identity. And I'm not sure that in like a fan perspective, there's a lot of that in the arts, which I think that there could be like super fans, like for a certain venue or something. There are definitely like people that a part of their identity is that they're a dancer, they're an actor, they're a musician, but like people aren't necessarily like lead with like I'm a fan of professional modern dance. Let's build those people.
Well,
Yeah.
I think Hamilton did a really good job
That's true.
of branding and getting people to latch on. They did an individual shirt for every tour location on their first tour, and so you could get your own city's tour design T-shirt and wear it with pride with Hamilton. Like Hamilton did some really, really smart things to get people to own the branding themselves and to attach themselves to it. And that was the first example of that really happening within our industry.
Well, I think the storytelling piece is so imperative to professional sports. So not only the behind the scenes, the practices, the spring training, all of that stuff, but also the individual narratives around players, right? And telling their story from, their high school kid. These are the challenges they've overcome. This is, how they became a professional athlete. This is how their career is going so far. And people become not only fans of teams, but fans of individual players as well. And so how do you take that sort of fandom idea and apply it to what we do? And I think it could apply really well for organizations that have resident companies, right? Building an identity around a resident company, building that fan base. So if you have a resident, orchestra or dance company, theater company, those are people who are consistently performing, showing up in your community. They have more opportunities for engagement in the community because they're not touring and, there for one night only. But telling the stories of those musicians, dancers, and actors, what they've overcome, how they've developed, the challenges that they've had, and then like featuring them in your social media, doing video storytelling, things like that. Like, can you do a flute battle with your like two flautists that are in your community orchestra or your professional orchestra, like, can your tuba player become a social media star because he's hilarious and you can focus a lot of attention on his story and like his humor? I don't know. But also like the athleticism of your dancers and your theater performers. Like doing 16 fouette turns in a row is just as impressive as sinking some 3-point shots, from your 3-point line. Like that's an incredible feat of athleticism. So like how can we translate some of that storytelling, particularly I think to like performers that are resident to our communities and really build up that fan base?
One thing I think that sports does really well is latch onto iconic personalities. We all know who Michael Jordan is, and we all know who Larry Bird is. We all know who Steph Curry is, who LeBron is. And amplifying those iconic personalities that are connected to greatness.
We assume we all know them, but honestly, not everybody does. Just like not everybody knows who Audra McDonald is. I mean, we have our stars in our world, but not everybody cares about it.
I'm saying we don't do as good of a job. I mean, Lin-Manuel Miranda right now is the biggest name.
Yeah. I think he's equal to LeBron in sports.
There's the equivalent, but we don't do a good enough job of having them in the media. Like Lin-Manuel Miranda made this transition from musical theater to Disney writing and composing. We as an industry, from a marketing standpoint, haven't latched onto that as making him more of a superstar universally than he is just within our sport.
And I do think part of all of it too is that like we're talking about the difference between like $100 and $1 billion, right? I mean, just like the amount of money that is behind the scenes on all of this is it's not comparable in any way. But like I have always thought that like somewhere a national campaign that's just like, hey, did you know that this is in your community? Like, not everybody's got X, Y, and Z, right? But just like some kinds of national campaigns highlighting like, go check out the theater programs that you have in your community with like a finder on their website of just like find the closest performing arts center to you. It's like there's story building in the journalism aspect of it, but then also in the national media, and the sports teams are all their own businesses, but they're also like they're also their own giant business as well. So while you're promoting your own thing, you're also sort of like still within the family. And we don't really do that so much per se, like, and a lot, but at the same time, a lot of our like larger consumer level, I guess kind of like counterparts do to an extent of like the major tours of like music artists and like giant theater and stuff. But I think the more that like we could really like much more elevate sort of that national story of like who the arts are in America and that we're close, probably no matter where you are, I think would go a long way.
So as a parent, I am entering the sports time of my life with Leo. So he is going to be playing coach pitch baseball this spring. And we've done some soccer, we've done some gymnastics, and, being community engagement, I go into schools on a regular basis here in my community. And my elder millennial is going to show here. But if you guys have seen High School Musical 3, when Zac Efron is like having this big internal struggle about, is he going to go to Juilliard or is he going to go play basketball in college? There's this big song called Scream in that movie where he jumps down the stairs and he comes face to face with these massive banners of the basketball players at the school, including himself. And there's like thunder and lightning and he tears one down. And it's very dramatic. Well, those banners, that movie came out in 2008. Those banners are real. Like you go into high schools now and you see full-size, life-size banners of high school athletes in schools. You don't see massive banners of the marching band kids or of the theater kids. Right. So I'm just thinking from like a pipeline perspective, that's marketing, right? So when you start in T-ball, you have a uniform, you get team pictures, right? There's a lot of camaraderie that's built. And then you move up level to level to level. And we celebrate kids moving up from level to level, eventually to middle school, high school, college, and then maybe even professional sports. And there's a lot of pressure that comes along with that, but also a lot of celebration. And whether you like this or not, and I'm not advocating for this because I don't know that it's necessarily healthy as a parent, but like we turn even high school athletes into heroes, and little kids are looking up to them and going like, I want to be like them. So how do we, as a marketing tactic to get more kids engaged and then turn them into performers and artists, technicians, patrons in the future, by celebrating and recognizing the hard work of our young people and raising them up to sort of that hero level status, the same as athletes. It's an incredibly effective tactic of like putting forward them as personalities, celebrating their achievements. We don't do the same for arts kids in our high schools. So when I like see that movie, or I walk into a high school and I see these massive banners and the trophy cases and all of these other things, like how do we, that's all marketing. When it really comes down to it, it's really marketing and storytelling and engaging the next generation, saying like, I want to be like them. How do we take some of those tactics from like all these different levels and the celebration aspect and turn that into that fandom, like Danielle was talking about earlier, like that team mentality, creating memories as a family around team sports is like such a big part of that too. How do you create that like family memory atmosphere in our performing arts spaces with the events that we have? I just think there's a lot from like even lower level, junior level sports, or that pipeline that we can take and apply to what we're doing, particularly with our education programs, both within our venues and in the way that we integrate that with our local communities and local schools.
Well, and Katie, I've been thinking about this too, like while we've been talking about this. And, you know, while all of this is like great for branding and getting this in the faces of people, there's also such a downside too to like personal privacy. And especially to like in as a parent too, and like thinking about high school athletes, like their name, image, and likeness being used like that. And like one, just being out there, but two, like not being compensated for it. Like if like a foundation similar-ish to like that sports foundation is being built, I think something that a lot of people in our field would be maybe more considerate of, or, you know, would maybe just want to build better, is like some more of like a privacy component into that. Or even as we talk more about like what people should be compensated for, like the thought of my kid being used as marketing or storytelling like that is in some ways exciting, right? But at the same time is a little bit like, I don't know if he asked for that, you know, like I'm not sure that I'm not sure that I'd say yes to that. You know, I think with everything, like we always talk about on here, there's a balance to it.
And Danielle, your point about privacy is well taken. And I feel like sports marketing a lot of times is exploitative of the stories of the athletes. But I think there's like at least some lessons to be gleaned from that in terms of like, how do we celebrate and raise up accomplishment and use that as a tool to get more people into seats, into the pipeline, becoming members versus patrons. Like I'm sort of thinking about like acquisition and retention language and how sports does that versus the arts. They use member a lot more, a team member, a member of the organization. We use patron. Like patron feels stuffy and stodgy, right? So you're a patron, you're a ticket holder, you're not a team member. You're not part of the organization when you buy a
members
ticket.
too. But,
yeah, I mean, instead of patrons, they call them fans. Those are that's the distinction within that. But at the same time, like we can talk about privacy, but privacy and promotion are polar opposites.
Yeah.
Yes, I understand what you're saying. And protecting children, especially as parents and families, is important. Once it gets past that high school level and up, it's promote or obscurity.
there is a price for fame.
There is.
Unfortunately, it's part of celebrity, which not everybody asks for or wants. And I just want to lift up too that this whole idea of competition in the arts, well, it's always been around. I mean, I think of things like AGT and American Idol, and they may not be in their heyday anymore or their most popular moment, but they were both huge at different times. And there's artists that have gone on and become big stars from those shows. I mean, it's a shame when it's not popular, when something really powerful isn't popular. But does art need to worry about competing? It might hurt the art in some ways too.
Yeah.
Like I don't know that it makes sense in all cases, but I mean, there's been a lot of interesting things to think about in this discussion. So.
I mean, let's be honest. From a capitalist standpoint, art is already competing. We're just not taking advantage of how it's competing for its success. It's competing for Tonys. It's competing for Grammys. The competition is there. We're just not taking advantage of it from a storytelling standpoint. The storytelling is what's the important part of this.
But Josh, I'm going to push back on that because in a lot of ways, it's not the artists that are competing for the Tonys or this or that. They just want to they have to get the art out, and they're creating the art. It's the producers and stuff because of dollars and cents reasons that want the Tonys and want these other things because it's going to draw more audiences, aka more money. But like I think of, you think about history and some of the biggest artists that we know of from history were flat broke in their time, and they weren't even popular until long after they were dead, but they still just produce tons of art because it was just what they had to do. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but I'm just saying like I think it doesn't make sense in all cases, or to focus your art in competition. I think it's the producer or the manager or whoever, it's their job to worry about the competition or these other things. But I think the artist just wants to focus on their art, and that's all they should have to do.
So I don't know that we actually answered any questions, but a lot of really good thoughts and a lot of really good points have come out of this that we can consider in ways to align what we're doing in the arts to successful things that have happened in sports. If you have a bracket and you still want to be in our group, you have to have a bracket already because brackets are locked. But if you still want to be in our group, find our link in our social media and go ahead and join our bracket challenge if you'd like, because the group itself has not been locked yet. For all of those who did join us in the challenge, thank you for being a part of it. This is going to be a lot of fun. And for now, we are out, and we will see you next week here at There's No Business Like.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to There's No Business Like. Our producers and hosts are Brian Zelmer, Josh Benson, Kevin Maynard, Katie Miller, and me, Danielle Van Hook. Views expressed in this podcast are ours alone and are not reflective of the organizations we are a part of. Keep up with us at nobusinesslike.com. There you'll find links to all of our episodes and socials. If you like this podcast, give us a like, a follow, a review, or our favorite, a 5-star rating. Oh wait, what was that site? I got it, don't worry. It is nobusinesslike.com. Do I sound out bus-I-ness every time I type it? Yep, sure do. Stay in touch, my friends.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we start actually recording our podcast today, Katie is with us, and she's going to go let her dogs in. What are their names again? Gus and what?
Wally.
Gus and Wally. All right, who are you going to let in first? Don't tell us. The rest of us are going to take bets. So take your headphones off so you don't get influenced by it, Katie.
Is this like the sequel to Who Let the Dogs Out? Is this like Who Let the Dogs
Who
In?
Let the Dogs
brought
In?
the
Well,
dogs
Katie
in?
did.
Yeah.
No, that is the title of the documentary of this era in political history.
I'm
let the
not
dogs in?
entirely sure that Katie has any control over which dog comes in first.
Oh,
I know.
I know what order.
Guess.
I know the order.
Go let the
She knows
dogs
the
in.
order,
Okay, I'll
so
be
don't
right
tell
back.
us.
It's Gus.
Don't tell us.
It's Gus.
All right.
It's Gus.
So we have one Gus. We have two Gus's.
Wally.
One Wally, and I'll go with Wally too. So it's 2-2. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're biting fingernails to find out who won. In the meantime, how are you guys all doing today?
I have been in nonstop meetings since 7:30 this morning. All of them going long and into each other and horrible. Like just the meetings were great.
Mm-hmm.
The schedule of it has been horrible.
Yeah.
You already let them in?
I already let them in.
All right. So who came in first? So just to recap, so Katie's up to date. We have 2 votes for Gus, 2 votes Wally. Danielle and Kevin both said Gus, and Josh and Brian both said Wally. And the answer is, drumroll please.
The first one in the door is always Gus.
Oh.
Suck it.
Yes.
There is a dog named Wally, right?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure it was actually an option.
It was. Yes, Wally is the one that ran away and was missing for 12 days, and we
Oh my
found him
gosh.
12 miles from our house in Traverse City.
Did he have one of those sticks with the bag, like the thing attached
He's
to
just
it?
he's carrying his bindle around.
If this story had ended with like her being like, actually a squirrel ran in to my surprise, like, and we'd all been wrong,
That
I
would have been
feel like
so appropriate.
that's
That would have been amazing.
that would have been the absolute best way.
You'd
for
have
this
had a
saga
brand
to
new
end.
squirrel pet.
I think we would have heard Katie scream though. But
Yeah, I mean, a lot would be going wrong right now,
Yeah.
but it would make for a really good story.
good for ratings, yeah.
Yeah. We need some more of those 5-star ratings.
All right, Josh, how are we going to do this? Also, who is winning the brackets and how are we hosting this? What are we doing?
Well, Clemson kind of fucked that.
Yeah.
Oh, did they already start?
Yes.
Yes.
If we go on that app, does it tell us like what our stats are? and
Yeah.
I'm in.
Okay.
I'm in fourth.
stuff?
I'm
How
tied
do
with
we get that
Brian.
in? Was it texted? Oh, we're tied?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yay, Danielle.
So, Kenny Miziak.
He's a listener.
Well, I figured he's a listener, but I'm just.
Oh, this is the women's one. Is the women's and men's tied, or do I have to go into separate links each time?
You have to go into separate links.
But it's like at the
Yeah.
top.
I mean, it's both
says,
tied
like-
into your account. So you can, if you're in your
Yeah,
account,
you
then you can
just-
just click groups and it'll take you to your different. Anyway, and then Deaton's second. Kevin Maynard is third.
Also second.
No, both
we are
second.
tied for
Oh, you are
second.
tied for second. And then Josiah Trop and myself are tied for fourth.
Oh, there's no winner like. That's a good name, Deaton. Nice work.
Yeah. Kevin named his K Maynard because he's lame.
Yeah.
Brian Zelmer named his ESPN 079678861.
Oh, am I able to change that?
You are.
I didn't know you had to name it. Oh,
You-
look at that. I can.
Yeah. Danielle, Brian, David Mitchell, and Katie Miller are tied for sixth.
Oh, I didn't realize Katie was in there too for her.
Erica
Good for us.
Finley, Laurel
Where do you
Cannon,
see the, oh, I
and Sean Wright are tied for 10th. And David Wannon is bringing up the rear at 13.
where do you see this? Where do you see this?
Under
Like I'm on
Whenever I
groups.
click-
Under group results.
Yep.
I don't see group results. I see my brackets.
I put it that way because it was with my family bracket, and it was like my sister's name is Kelly, my other sister's name is Kayla, so K Maynard is just
That's hilarious.
yeah. And I was like, oh, like
Here, it's not so fun.
no. Here it's just like that's
Brian has
insane.
now gone incredibly original and just put BZ.
Well, that's my name.
Well, thanks, Brian.
Who's friend of the at the coffee shop?
That's Kenny.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't know who Kenny is.
listener.
Oh, Danielle, Katie, and I are all sixth place. We're all tied.
That is correct.
We're the best.
Okay.
That is exactly what
And
sixth
this D.
place
Mitchell
means.
Oh,
Yes.
fellow.
Juan in his last place? While we're paused, I just want to say I just noticed Deaton's name, and I love "There's no winner like."
Oh my God, Brian!
Did you guys already say that?
God, I
Sorry,
can't
I
wait
was-
for you to be back to like listen to the beginning of this episode.
I was trying to figure out
man.
things when you guys were talking, so I
Yeah.
couldn't listen and do it
No
at the same
kidding.
time. Sorry.
All right, Benson, sorry for interrupting. I didn't realize I was going to derail us this much.
Interrupting what? I clearly had nothing for this episode.
Oh,
Complete chaos episode.
I'm crying.
Honestly, we should
I
talk
know.
about sports more.
My eyes are watering too.
Really is. I hope you're having as much fun with this as we are. We recorded this on March 21st. And since we recorded it on March 21st, I'm going to go ahead and give you an updated listing of the rankings with our NCAA Bracket Challenge. Starting with the Men's Bracket Challenge. In first place, we have There's No Winner Like, Jacob Deaton. Tied for second place, we have Pudge Capella 11's Picks 1 with David Mitchell and War Badger Pack with Josiah Trop. Tied for fourth place, we have UNC Revenge Tour, Sean Wright. Big Duke, Daniel Van Hook. Friend at the Coffee Shop, Kenny Miziak. Coming up in seventh, Hope for the Pope, Erica Finley. Tied for eighth, BZ, Brian Zelmer. Bensonator Dominator, Josh Benson. K Maynard, Kevin Maynard. In 11th place, Katie Knows Nothing About Basketball, team by Katie Miller. In 12th place, Let's Go Big Ten, Laurel Cannon. And in 13th, we've got Dave and Sam, David Wannon. In the women's bracket, we've got The Best Time of Year. In first place, Kenny Miziak. In second place, I'm Gonna Win It All, Jacob Deaton. Third place, K Maynard, Kevin Maynard. Fourth place, It's the Other Carolina, Sean Wright. In fifth place, B. Ryan, The Brack Z, Brian Zelmer. In sixth place, Roars Picks, Daniel Van Hook. In seventh place, Equal Right to Dominate, Josh Benson. In eighth place, Erica Finley, UK WBB. Erica Finley. In 9th place, Katie knows nothing about basketball. Katie Miller. We are so happy that a number of you have decided to do this with us. It's just a fun thing that we can keep doing. Thank you for participating.